I'm Bob Friday. I was the CTO, co-founder of Mist. I'm now the CTO of Juniper's AI-Driven Enterprise. What I really like to start with was the Mist AI journey and how we got started. And that journey really started when I was at Cisco. When I heard some very large customers tell me, Bob, before we're going to put robots, consumer experiences onto these networks, you've got to do three things for me. One is you got to stop these controllers from crashing. You've got to give me reliable software. Two, you've got to keep up with my digital innovation. They were doing these mobile designs that were moving at new updates every month. And they basically wanted to make sure that the network could keep up with that. And probably the third and most important thing, they really wanted end-to-end visibility. And this is really the paradigm shift from what I did 20 years ago at Airspace when we were helping them manage APs, routers, and switches. What they really wanted was complete visibility from the device to the network. And that is really one of the inspirations for Mist is when I saw Watson play Jeopardy. That's when we realized that this AI stuff was more than just marketing hype, right? If they could build something that could play Jeopardy at championship level Jeopardy, we could really build something that could play network Jeopardy, right? Build something that could really answer questions and manage networks on par with real network domain experts. And that's where the journey started for Sujay and myself. And the beginnings of that journey, or the first step, was really around data. And that is why we decided to build an access point when we started Mist, right? Because we needed to make sure that we had the right data to answer the question of why are you having a connectivity problem? Why are you having a Zoom problem? And for those who know me, I make a barrel of wine here saying, great wine starts with great AI starts with great data. And so that's where the journey for Mist started, was around data. You'll see on that journey, we've continued to be on the same journey for the last 4 years. And now we're really moving into really turning Marvis into something that can really join an IT team and really earn the trust of an IT team. And that is really trying to build something that is doing something on par with the human that's actually helping an IT team manage and operate their networks. If you look what we've done with Juniper now, so if you look where we're on that adventure now, that adventure has really been extended to the Juniper. And really, when you look what happens at Juniper, it's the same journey that we've been on for the last 4 years. What we're really doing here is adding more data into Marvis. And what that really allows Marvis to do is allows Marvis to answer more data. As we start to bring in that 128T SD-WAN router into Marvis, it starts to let us to answer questions about the application and the session level things. It starts to let Marvis start to answer questions about why is that Zoom user having a problem? And it starts to let Marvis start to answer questions with more granularity. When you have a connectivity problem, now we can get down into the WAN interface. Is it a wireless problem? Is it a WAN interface problem? So as you see what we're doing at Juniper now is we're starting to extend that day two AI operations value proposition all the way from the client itself, all the way back into the data center. So as Sudhir says, we're on the same journey. We've been on the same journey for the last 4 or 5 years, and it's only getting better. Now, as we move on to the next part of the journey, what you'll see is we're really starting to add this conversational interface.
Yeah. So what I would say, Bob, is actually, one of the things that we are super excited about, and all the delegates and everybody watching, this is such a fundamental core strategy element for us. You've always seen our AI journey slide for almost 4 years now. And this is another slide I think you're going to start to see very repetitively, boringly in every slide deck from Juniper and Mist, because we really believe in our bloodstream that we have, Marvis as we've built it, obviously got the wireless done, many moons ago. We got the wired done. Today, we've announced actually at Mobility Field Day, July 27th last year, the advent of AI-driven SD-WAN, and that has come to bear. And now the 128 acquisition and the integration of that into the AI engine, all of that is what we're announcing today. So truly, if you look at the industry, if you look at some of the behemoths that we compete with, they have very fragmented portfolios. And if you take the siloed SD-WAN players, they just don't have the rest of the network pieces to put the puzzle together. So when we say client to cloud, literally, we launched a Marvis SDK. It's in trials at one of our largest customers, going into, several 300,000 devices to be able to stream data to the Marvis cloud. So Marvis SDK for clients, obviously Marvis for wireless and wired and the SD-WAN, putting all that picture together is sort of where we see this conversational interface go. And so very quickly, what I want to do is actually show you this conversation interface. Really, our North Star here is be able to really answer questions and be able to come in and say, hey, what's going on, right? So the Mist conversational interface, it's built into the dashboard. Essentially, by the way, let me pause and say, we're going to be giving away APs. I don't know for what and how. Be active on Twitter, hashtag NFD24 and at Juniper Networks. We will start giving away some APs during the day. We'll have some fun with this. But what the conversation interface does, it's really your starting point, right? So you could say, hey, what's going on with my network? What do I need to go take actions on? It's right there. It's the very first thing. And you could say, hey, I'm having issues, with, Curtis's device, or you could just ask a question. It's like, okay, Curtis has these phones or these devices. You can go in and say, tell me more about that device, or tell me more exactly what's going on with his individual laptop today. You could say, no, I want to actually, troubleshoot Curtis's experience today. And Marvis is able to actually go back, find, what's going on, and then really have a back and forth conversation. Many of you that have been with Mist, you've seen Marvis for what it is today, which is you could ask the same question here, but you would get a one and done answer. But with this conversational interface, you can continue the conversation. You can say, okay, I see that he's having, poor coverage experience. Now let me see, okay, whom else is this impacting? What band is it happening on? What client types is it happening on? What OSs is it affecting? And which other clients are impacted? And then, literally, you could have this entire conversation here, and, you could, troubleshoot switches, troubleshoot APs, troubleshoot devices, ask sort of, hey, I want to find out how to configure a WLAN, right? So obviously it understands full natural language. It understands, basically, spelling mistakes, whatever it is, right? It is a real ground up, amazing natural language engine that ultimately, if you think of our true north here, our true north is, if you look at what IT operators come in and do in dashboards, 80% of the time they're doing something very predictable that they do day in and day out. Either they're installers coming installing APs, they're, somebody's doing, analytics, somebody's doing, troubleshooting, somebody's doing, reporting, all of this kind of stuff. We could take those activities and make them cut all the dashboard detective hunting stuff and bring it back into one interface, right? This is what we're building. This is what we are continuing to launch. This is something we've talked about. There's lots of betas underway right now, and our customers are going to start to play with this in a couple of weeks as well. So we are excited about the conversation interface. Now, what this all leads to is what is the role of a virtual network assistant? Right. And so, Bob, talk a little bit about sort of how we use AI within our own support teams.
Yeah, so I think one of the things we do here is what I found beyond just, building the architecture really to handle AI, we really had to organizationally change the organization. We basically had to take the data science team and connect it right up to the customer support team. And that's really the fundamental difference now with cloud and AI. Customer support is a proxy for our real customers. So what we did here is we made sure that for every support ticket that comes into Mist, we actually have Marvis try to answer those support tickets, right? Because that's what our customers are dealing with right now. And over the last couple of years right now, we've gotten Marvis up to the point where Marvis can now answer 60 to 70% of every ticket that comes into our support team. And that is the thing with Marvis, is as Marvis joins your IT team, Marvis continually gets better and better as it learns as you start to use it. And so this is where you start to look at AI and Marvis as really becoming another member of your IT team, a trusted member that you can actually interact with, and then you can actually train to get feedback better. So Sudhir, with with what we're doing with Marvis right now, this is really the key point of really the efficacy of really getting Marvis to do something on par with a human. Getting Marvis to actually be able to manage and answer questions on par with that network domain expert.
Awesome. Thank you, Bob. So actually, one of the things is this slide. We've started maintaining this since about 2.5 years ago. And so this is a monthly, off the number of tickets coming in, how are we performing? As you can see, this is a very real, hard fought battle, one brick by one brick, we've been building this. And so this is why AI is not something you just say, hey, I threw a lot of data at this, I should get good at this. You actually train and learn as you go. And then a critical piece of this, right? If most of the vendors in our space right now, they have sensors for getting data to emulate the client. We absolutely 100% do not believe in that. We really believe, the data that we gather inherently live midstream in the network with the access point switches and the WAN routers, there is significant richness. If you have, operating systems like Junos or the Mist AP, you can actually have the granularity of data. You shouldn't need sensors. However, for times when, hey, you need to know whether how is the client viewing the network? How is the client's perception of the network? How is the client's roaming experience going? All of those types of things, we actually now are launching a Marvis SDK for Android devices. Windows is around the corner, and then MacBook Pro. But this gives us a very good sense of what is the view of the client without introducing overlay sensors and overlay networks, right?
So Sudhir, excuse me, you and Bob have talked about, the thing that makes AI good is the amount of data that's coming in for ingestion. So if you're not using sensors, are you looking at like SNMP, traps, MIBs? Are you querying devices? You pulling, taps off of your switches? How are you gathering all this data?
Yeah, Brian, great question. So first things first, right? So this is why we had to do our own access point, because literally there's one way to connect to a wireless network, right? You associate, authenticate, you get DHCP, DNS, you're off to the races. There is hundreds of ways in which you can fail to connect, right? Let's say the DHCP server is not responding to a renew request. That's a failure. And so there's so many of these different vectors. So, since day one, Brian, we've intensely focused on what are the hundreds of ways in which a user can fail to connect. And we collect, collate, and curate every one of that. And in fact, I'm going to show you an example of an individual customer. Maybe since you've asked the question, I'll just answer it here. We've done a very large deployment with about a 10,000 AP university deployment, one of the top 5 universities in the world. Essentially, if you see, again, it's COVID times. They don't have, much of their students back. They actually, I think the peak connected clients today is about 21,000. Not very many. On average, they probably see, 60, 70,000 users on any given day, but it is what it is. Now, even just for the 16,000 clients I have here, we're collecting, just for this one customer, we're collecting 4 million daily events on just that one account, daily events, right? Every kind of failure, every kind of transaction with the network, we collect, collate, and curate. And it really, there's every vendor today you're going to hear, and all the other vendors in networking, if they don't say AI, it's like they're going to get shot, right? So AI is pervasive and AI is overused. For us, it comes down to the quality of data and the efficacy and the veracity of data, right?
The one thing I may add here, Brian, is that when you look what we did 20 years ago at Airspace, it was about basically looking at the health of an AP or a switch. What's happening now is really, if you look at that access point, in addition to sending back synchronous data like every minute, we're also sending back asynchronous data every time that user state changes. And that's probably really the biggest change from what I did 20 years ago at Mist. It's all about keeping data on the end user, right? So we're basically bringing back a ton more data than we've done, 20 years ago type of thing. That makes sense. So you're starting to see these data devices get smarter about streaming data, how they stream data back into the AIOps platform, right?
Okay, so it's basically telemetry data. I'm not having to grab other system to collect this thing to send to stream things back. It's looking for event changes and things to send back to a controller.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, there's really special metadata being streamed back, right, from the access point, from the client itself. We have data coming back from SD clients now. We have data coming back from the switches and from the routers coming back into the AIOps platform.
Right. And so what you will see is actually for all the failures in the network. So let's say, every kind of failure, Brian, in the network, we collect, collate, and QLate. And then anything that is a negative event, anything that, is, something that I may need to go post-process, we have a dynamic packet capture waiting for us in the cloud. So never, ever do you have to say, can you go walk the hallway again so I can take a sniffer trace? And this is what I'm talking about when I say 400,000 dynamic PCAPs on just one day in this college campus. And oh, by the way, did I say they deployed 10,000 APs in 4 months? Complete replace of a Cisco network. So it is possible to do cloud and large scale co-located campus networks. And this is why you need the cloud, so you can actually have this kind of rich data.
Sudhir, could you address how you collect data from non-Juniper devices, please?
Yeah, so a great question. So we actually, so if you think of, let's say, the type of subsystems that we interact with and show data on, right? As an example, let's say, hey, Radius servers, right? So we are watching all Radius transactions. We can say when a Radius server went out to lunch or when DHCP server went out to lunch, because we are the network. All packets are going through. So any state traffic is we just literally take that take the state transitions and stream to the cloud. So, and for now, for non-Juniper devices, such as these, like adjacent devices like Radius and DHCP, we're watching the data and making AI-driven inferences. And for switching devices, so if let's say you have Cisco switching, HPE switching, whatever it is, we're watching LLDP data and saying, hey, is that switch, powering all the APs properly? Are all the right VLANs on that switch? Is the switch's versions, are they compliant? All this kind of stuff. We've actually, even for non-Juniper switches, we can bring data. And of course, you've heard Marvis Client gives you data from the client perspective itself. We're super excited. We're actually, one of the things that you will find in every Mist customer deployment is that the network goes in and it literally just works. If you go read the reviews on Gartner Peer Insights or speak to any Mist customer, they will tell you when they deploy, the network just works. And in fact, 3 things happen. The 3 things that happen in every single Mist network are we accelerate their deployment, we reduce the number of tickets coming in, and we actually reduce the time they take for solving the tickets that do come in. Those 3 things every single deployment, right? Now, how do we reduce the number of tickets coming in? I think, again, Keith Parsons and the Wi-Fi community will tell you, Wi-Fi design, foundational, you do a good design, you actually eliminate a lot of the ghosts in the air. But beyond, very, very good design is actually having a good understanding of the RF environment and actually, having long-term memory of how your RF environment is and being able to adjust and align around it across every single customer, right? So we're very proud of this. We're launching sort of our AI-driven RRM version 2.0 with, auto cancellation on 2.4 gig radios and, dual 5 gig. Literally no user intervention needed. You just say, yep, I want auto cancellation. I'll give you an example. we just, as part of that 10, 12,000 AP campus deployment, we've done some really good dorm room deployments, where in the dorm rooms, we left the dual band on, but in the hallways, the APs that are augmenting the dorm room APs, we actually turned off the 2.4, so again, completely automatically, completely self-learned. And the reason, fundamental difference between this and a controller-based architecture is, for controllers, they just don't have enough long-term memory to make good decisions. We actually remember data over a very long term, right? And then the last thing, maybe I will pause with this, is Mist Edge is a really critical piece when you are transitioning from a Cisco network or an Aruba network, and you've had your VLAN data traffic centralized. What the equivalent product we use is a product called Mist Edge, and what we're launching today is this Mist Edge is now become Mist, like every other Mist product, complete zero-touch provision. Literally, you get this big honking box that can terminate. In the case of this university, they're using 12 Mist Edges, in 3 clusters across data centers. Every kind of failure accounted for. And all you have to do is get this big box, no CLI to learn, no SSH to anything, plug it in, power it up, connects to the Mist, and boom, it's zero-touch provision, and you're now actually rolling in packets, rolling a large campus network with completely no CLI, no onboarding. This is super cool, right? And maybe, I know I said the last one, this is the truly last slide. Here we go. So another thing we're launching is location proximity zones for occupancy analytics. Again, another very Mist-like feature where you enable a box and automatically we will create zones around the APs, because we have customers that have deployed 100,000 access points, literally 100,000 access points. It's really hard to go into every retail store and draw zones, right? And so, being able to check a box and saying, can you just make analytics happen for me? That is something that is now available for a lot of our customers. So the moral of the story, net, the Wi-Fi innovation at Mist is alive and well and moving the bar in the industry again and again. And today we are launching a lot of this. By the way, I haven't even done probably the most important announcement we've made. We've had this Successful Connect SLE for a long time. This is actually understanding and tracking states of connections of users. Tonight, for all the Mist customers, without you lifting a finger, we always say Christmas comes every Wednesday at Mist, and it is Wednesday today. Tomorrow morning, you will see a brand new Successful Connect service level that now takes in ARP and DNS and additional states in DHCP, all built in. It's launching for every customer on the Mist cloud without you lifting a finger tonight, and tomorrow morning you'll have this live, right? So this is the power of having a cloud-driven architecture versus sort of running controllers like VCRs from old days.